Rachel. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So we got a lot to talk about today. It's going to be fun, I think. But first, I got this little divining pendulum. And
Ooh.
I think people, who know us kind of personally, we love our forensics. We've got like autopsy over here and then a deck of tarot cards over here.
Yes.
Tarot cards, I
Both
think, just
sides of our personality.
exactly. I think they're fun, and I think they kind of help see the reasoning why, sort of behind things and stuff. And so I just find them interesting, just like this. We're still all about the forensics. But I thought we could do a fun little test. You know, when the celebrities do those lie detector tests and then they each ask them questions, and then it can go really badly. So,
Yes.
so I got this little crystal. It's a quartz, and it's in copper. So, what I'm going to ask you one question, and then you'll answer it,
Okay.
and then the pendulum will tell us if you're telling the truth.
Okay.
So, if it goes this way, um, what's the opposite of horizontal?
It's
Back and
so
forth.
if it goes, it's yeah, vertical. Well,
Vertical,
the opposite of
then
yeah.
that means you're telling the truth. And if it goes horizontal, then that means that you're not telling the truth. Are you
Okay.
ready?
Let's see if I'm being honest.
Okay, because this is like a really important question.
Oh God. Okay.
Like probably the most important one that you've ever been asked. More important than when you said, than when you were proposed to. I mean, this is a big one. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm
I'm
going to let
ready.
it just sit for a minute. And everyone out there, just let me know if I'm doing this wrong because I may be. Okay. Okay. Rachel, am
Yes.
I the most adorable best friend that you've ever had?
Without a doubt.
Okay, now let's see what happens. Now I'm laughing.
It's
Shit,
going
I
slow,
think.
but it started saying yes.
Yes, it
It
did.
was
Okay, I
very
think it
subtle.
is. Oh my goodness, am I subtly adorable? Okay, I
It's gonna
think
be really bad for your punk rock image, babe.
okay, I think you passed. But if we ever do have access to a lie detector test, I'm going to think of
Oh,
a
we're so doing
lot
it.
of good questions for you.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yes, exactly. So Rachel and I have been talking, and our beautiful Beverly, who is not here with us today, but our beautiful Irish emotional support witch Beverly has been talking to a fantastic journalist now for, I think she said it'll be 2 years in January. They've been talking back and forth on the Cobain case, and he actually did the articles about Ian Halperin's book where he said
Hmm.
like the one without Max where he said that he met somebody at a gas station attendant, etc. And so she's been working with him to try to get something out about what we've been doing. And the problem has been that, I mean, nobody will touch it, so the media just
Yeah.
does not want to have anything about Courtney. Anybody, they're worried about lawsuits, even though we all know
Any
that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
any reputable anything doesn't, because of
Yes.
course, as we all know, something like the National Enquirer is happy to post and publish whatever lies somebody tells them, but
Yes, alien babies and yes, and the like. But this article, I mean, we went over a lot of stuff with Alex in this article, and what I thought was really interesting is that he sort of had a basis for going, okay, there's something wrong in this case, but then he
yeah.
he started going back and forth asking us questions about Kurt. So I think maybe we should go over. Of course, we went over the questions with him, but I thought, if you and I go over these questions and debunk them, or just sort of give a little bit more context as to, what happened in a
Yeah,
lot of this stuff, I think that would be really interesting for people.
I
So yeah,
agree.
so I am going to read you something here super quickly. So we're going through everything. And he's talking about, of course, he's talking about Rome. He's talking about Kurt being depressed. He's talking about stomach problems. And then we started talking about the hereditary aspects of taking your own
Oh,
life and whether that is actually a thing. So
Yeah.
Your mom, obviously, we've had Dr. Richmond on before, and
Mhm.
she has talked about that, I think, a little bit. But I think we know that that's actually, unless it's a family member that you know and love.
Yeah, so earlier this evening I gave her a hypothetical of, like what impact could on, just like your average person, what impact would a family member's suicide have? Like, would that put you at greater risk
Right.
for doing it yourself? Um, and essentially what she said is that there's like a risk like there's a whole panel of things that they consider as one of the things that she teaches in the course that she teaches. Um, and that family suicide is one of the things, but that it's, like brothers, close cousins, um, parents, things like that.
Hmm.
And so I asked very specifically, I said, well, what about, that person's grandparents' siblings? Because in Kurt's case, those are the ones that are cited, that are said to be factual. And, the Cobain curse and all of these, whatever. Was Leland had two brothers, Kenneth and Burl, I believe.
Yep.
And Burl did, and then not long after, Kenneth did. Um, but for that to have impacted Kurt, he would have one needed to have known both of these men, which
Yeah,
the
he
odds
did
of that,
not.
I feel it. I'll
No.
say the
Yeah.
odds of that are very, very slim.
Yeah.
Um, but and then also he would have had to have been impacted by their deaths.
Yeah.
Um, and so without knowing them, I think that totally rules that out as well. She basically, like, the example that she gave me is, say you're adopted and your biological father ends his life. That's not going to impact you in any way because you're not aware of it.
Right. Yeah.
The impacting part is that you know that it's an option because somebody close to you did it.
Right.
And so that makes you potentially more likely to then take that course of action yourself.
Right.
Um, so with two distant relatives, like two great uncles, I would say that would have very little impact on you.
Now, when I spoke with Gary Cobain a long time ago, he said that so the grandpa who is I guess would have been I guess it would be the great grandpa. He died in an accident, like an accidental shooting. And then
Yeah.
one of the brothers, and let me just so that I get this right. So one of the brothers did take their own life, but one of them did not. One of them was another accidental death. So we don't
Gotcha.
even know whether or not was two of them or just one. Now we do have a source from the family who says that. So the person who said this is named Beverly, and this is a Cobain cousin. So this is not our Beverly, not Irish
No.
Beverly. The
No.
person who stated that this is a family issue is Beverly, and we're told she's a little kooky. So just keep that in mind. That I don't know that of course, she clearly doesn't know psychology very well or what impacts the risk factors. But I mean, even I think the risk factors of like my grandpa committed suicide, but again, I didn't know him. And so it has no impact on me whatsoever. Um, but even like a close person, it doesn't raise it that much. Like even if somebody close to you does it, it's like, it's like a 2% increase or something. It's actually
Yeah.
not, it's not a familial, it's not a hereditary issue.
Yeah, no, and that was another thing that was made explicitly clear by Dr. Richmond is that this is not anything that's genetic. Um, it's all psychological. So the impact I feel of any of the potential suicides in his family, what it would have not impacted him at all. And I
Yeah.
mean, in my opinion, and from what Dr. Richmond said, I that was what I gathered as well. Because she basically told me, if she was doing the risk assessment, that finding out that you have a grandparent whose two brothers did, um, that would be something that she would feel she needed to write down, but that it would not have any impact.
Yeah. And I mean,
Um,
okay, so Dr. Richmond is talking about this now. We know that most addicts aren't suicidal. They just often die accidentally.
Yeah.
And or we also know that the proclivity to be depressed or to consider taking your life is when you don't have access to your drug. It's not
Yeah.
when you have access to it. Um, so I forget where I'm going with that. But
That's okay.
okay, so family, heredity. Um, that was a great movie, by the way. Hereditary.
It really, really was.
It really was
Totally
great.
freaked me out.
Um, it was so scary.
uh, but being addicts being suicidal. So this just a personal anecdote, and this is extraordinarily personal, but I feel like it's worth it. So I'm just going to go ahead. I know for me personally, throughout my life, I suffered pretty consistently from the time I was about 12 until just a few years ago with some pretty severe suicidal ideation. And some chunks of years where I was pretty actively suicidal. And I will never forget that when I overdosed, when they brought me back, like as soon as I woke up, they asked me if I wanted to go to the hospital to be checked out. And I started to say no. And they told me, well, if you don't go, you could fall back out and you could die. And I immediately started crying and just said over and over and over, I don't want to die. I don't. And I, from that moment, have never had even the slightest thought.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just totally like snapped me out of any desire to think that that might be better
Mm-hmm.
or that I might be better off that way. Um, and so I struggle to feel like with him having just recently had a near death experience where he very likely could have died
Mm-hmm.
in Rome, that he would come out of that and just be like, yep, let's do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
With all of the things like his daughter, especially that he loved more than anything,
Mm-hmm.
that he would just throw that away after having been smacked in the face with the reality of how easily he could have died.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just
Absolutely.
I don't see it.
Now, and I want to talk about Rome, and here you reminded me what I did want to talk about too was Exodus. Now, because addicts are associated with, having mental issues,
Mm,
whether that's because of, undiagnosed, meaning that that's why they turn to addiction, or whether that's happened now since, family has been alienated, et cetera, through addiction. Would they not have counselors at Exodus? Why?
yeah,
My thing is that I know too, like, I don't know how it is in the States, but in Canada, if someone thinks that you are about to take your life, you go to the hospital. Like, you don't have a choice. They put you in a bed.
yeah,
Now, I don't know how
yeah,
that works in America, but I have to assume that if anyone at Exodus thought that this was a possibility with Kurt,
yeah.
they would
He
have done
held.
something. Yes.
They would have put him on a psych hold.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, so you're talking about not only, the doctor in Rome also, I mean, I think that would have been tremendous negligence if the doctor in Rome was just like, he came out and said it's accidental. And, some people will say, oh, that was just their PR. Well, okay, but that's that guy's job and that guy's livelihood. And do you really think he's going to risk it and lie and say that it was accidental if he was truly worried? I mean, going back, if we go back again, Marilyn, just talking about her because she's someone I know enough about to sort of talk about. They said numerous times that she was in the hospital for attempted suicide, and
Yeah,
again, I would have to look deeper into that to find out whether or not that was true. But I feel like, yes, I can see how that would be certainly it would be embarrassing perhaps, and people wouldn't necessarily want to talk about it, but at the same time a doctor is not going to come out and risk their personal
no,
their professional standing by saying, well, this was accidental, we didn't see any need to keep him, no issues, we didn't have him talk to a
yeah,
therapist, nothing, you know.
yeah. Well, and as far as Kurt goes, the only prior attempts have only ever been claimed by Courtney.
Yeah.
I've never heard or read or seen anybody else claim that he had ever attempted prior to
What
that.
about Chuck Taylor? The story, because somebody asked me about that. They said, oh, but it says right in his journals that he was, that he had tried.
It's it's a story. It's called fiction.
Uh,
He liked to write
um,
stories. Um, Anywho, so um, now I'm trying to remember what my 2 points are. So the one I know is there are only a small handful of people that saw the note from Rome. That would be Courtney, Callie, the Seattle Police Department, and Janet Billig. Those are the
okay.
only people I'm aware of that have ever seen the Rome note prior to Courtney destroying it. Um, Don Cameron told Courtney to destroy it because it, quote unquote, would not do her any favors. And when asked what that meant, she said specifically, well, it was mean to me. It talked about getting a divorce. Callie is quoted as saying that he doesn't believe that it was a suicide note, that it was a note about him leaving her. And Janet Billig basically mirrored the same exact thing, that he knew he was going to get his money together and he was going to leave.
Yeah. Which is again,
Leaving and ending your life are two vastly different things.
absolutely. Unless you're married to a murderous harpy who
And
doesn't want you to
the
leave.
only person that read that note that is claiming it's a suicide note is Courtney.
Okay, so then it goes on to say, with two uncles who took their lives, at least one documented instance of him saying he had thought about shooting himself, the Rome incident, heroin addiction, stomach pain, and depression all at once, like as if this is too much to for a person to bear. I mean,
Right.
again, and I know this from speaking to authorities, we cannot put ourselves in the mindset of, you and I often will, I mean, we can talk about it and it's
Yeah.
interesting,
We
but
could
we don't,
postulate.
yeah, we can
Yeah.
postulate. It doesn't matter because the forensic says he didn't do it. I don't care if he called you the night before and said, listen, Rachel, I'm doing this. He didn't. So that's sort of
Yeah.
irrelevant. But if we go through those, so we went through Rome, we went through the two uncles, um, of course, addiction. Now, he was it's so hard to know how much he was using. We know he wasn't using in Rome. So
Right.
when they pumped his stomach and there was no heroin, right? So we know he
Correct.
was not using in Rome. Do we
Right.
believe he was using like, January to March? What do we know
Um,
about that?
I believe he was. All accounts say that he was, that
Okay.
after he got back from Rome. And not just Courtney, like everybody
Okay.
was talking about him using once he got back from Rome. Which I can kind of understand. Um, when something that scary happens, you
Yeah,
just kind of don't want to feel it. Um,
totally.
and especially with all the other issues he had going on with his marriage and the band, and
Mm-hmm.
he was wanting them out. But I think of him more as a binge user instead of like a chronic consistent user. Especially towards the end there. Um, I think he would just go on binges, and I believe that's even kind of how he described himself.
Mm.
Because there's that note that Gibby Haynes sold at Julian's auction house
Mm-hmm.
that was supposedly written in Exodus, or it was written prior to Exodus and just left at Exodus. I'm not sure.
Right.
I tend to lean towards the latter just because of the date on it. But
Right.
anyway,
And it was the
um,
28th
yeah,
of March.
March
Yeah.
28th.
Okay.
Yep. Um, but I mean, he even essentially says, that like he's not addicted to it anymore, but that, he keeps binging on it essentially.
Yeah.
And so I think that was more what his using was like, is that he would just, every few days or every weekend or every whatever, he would
Yeah.
just kind of go a little crazy,
Yeah.
get some and do his thing, and then be fine for a few days, and
Yeah.
then, repeat the cycle.
Yeah, that makes sense. And now when, people always talk about his stomach pain and it's like, man, I wish he had never said this one stupid thing that we have all said, like, oh, Rachel, I mean, you were just talking about your situation, but it's like, oh my God, it was the worst. Like I was standing in line at the DMV and I wanted to blow my fucking head off. Like I've
Yeah.
never had a worse afternoon. Okay. That's
Yeah.
just the way Gen X talks,
Yeah.
period. Like I think most Gen Xers out there are going to say like, yeah, I agree with you. And so once he said that his stomach pain was so bad, he wanted to blow his head off. And this is after years of pain.
Well, and I see the thing with that is that yes, he did say that. And there are at least two times that I'm aware of where he went into detail talking about how horrific that time was. But I will also point out that he talked about it this way after it was taken care of and he was no
Yeah.
longer dealing with that stomach pain anymore.
Yeah.
But um, how awful it was for 5 years every single day. And that, yeah, it made him suicidal. But here's the thing, he got that way, he felt those feelings, and he found a way to cope with it. Was it a healthy coping mechanism? No. Using drugs is not a healthy coping mechanism. But that's better than ending your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I mean, that's essentially what he said is that, if I'm going to live like a junkie anyways because of my stomach problems, I might as well be one. And
Yeah.
so he started heavily using heroin to deal with it.
Yeah. Now let's we're gonna have Kurt tell you about his stomach issues.
I finally have been prescribed the right stomach medicine after 6 years of being in constant pain. Finally, I haven't had a stomach problem for like over a year now. But I was in pain. I mean, I was in pain for so long that I didn't care if I was in a band. I didn't care if I was alive, And it just so happened that I came to that conclusion at a time when my band became really popular, I mean, it'd been going on and building up for so many years that I was, suicidal. I mean, I just didn't want to live. So I just thought, if I'm going to die, if I'm going to kill myself, I should take some drugs, May as well become a junkie because I felt like a junkie every day.
So as you can see, Kurt's stomach issues were clearly taken care of. When was this, Rachel? This was at the end of 93?
December 93. Yep.
So if he had medicine that was helping his stomach, then, 3 months later, because, the Rome incident was at the beginning of March. So 3 months later, 2.5 months later, he obviously isn't still having the stomach issues. We know that his interview with Nardwar, he's eating pizza. No one seemed to think, nobody, when they talked to Kurt's friends, nobody said like, oh, well, his stomach issues, they'd all of a sudden come back and it had just like, just
Yeah.
hit him in the gut or whatever, So, so stomach pain, just simply not a problem anymore.
Correct.
So let's talk about quickly, because this really drives me crazy. So people who saw Kurt in the last few weeks of his life, some of them say that he was insane. And so they're like, yeah, he was at Caitlin's and he was hallucinating and like she couldn't get him out of her apartment and he was just sleeping on the couch begging her not to make him go home. And like, so do you have anything to say about that?
I think that a lot of people have said a lot of things to sell a narrative that they want sold.
Why would his friends want this sold? I don't understand why people because didn't Chris even say that he wasn't right after Rome? And that is not true.
I think he did say that once. I am honestly not sure because the majority of people said that he was fine.
Yeah. Okay. So the nanny, everybody at Exodus, I know they didn't, obviously the people at Exodus didn't know him before, but Gibby.
So Gibby, Pat, Jackie, which is the nanny.
I mean, even Dylan said
Jessica
Kurt was doing fine.
Yeah. Dylan, I think at one point said that, well, I don't know, after Rome, he was kind of monochromatic, but like
he's in black and white? You mean he's just
apparently.
I mean, obviously, if there was anything to that, I could see him being a little sullen because he knows what he has to deal with and what he has to do. And I think he probably knew what Courtney had done. I know he'd been roofied and wouldn't remember every single thing, but he was clever. I think
but he was a smart guy. He can put two and two together. He knows he's not a drinker. He he knows what was preceding that and then what happened afterward. It's not hard to put two and two together that you're in a room alone with your wife and all of a sudden you're overdosing on drugs you didn't take. Come on now.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm sure he was pretty wigged out. And he also was dealing with wanting to break up his band, leave his wife, move across the country, like all of these things, trying to figure out how to deal with them, being scared, being, like that's a lot of heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and then not to mention after the intervention, when he's going to feel completely isolated from all of his friends, feel like they had all turned on him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's he going to do?
Yeah, of
He's going
course.
to isolate, and he's
Yeah.
going to do his own thing in silence, stealthy. He's not going to be opening up and, gushing to these people
Yeah.
that are clearly in cahoots with Courtney.
Yeah. I mean, it is again a bizarre narrative that I think is so harmful,
No, it
Um,
is.
and what exactly, it's an interesting thing too, because we know there was no brain damage after Rome. So
Yeah.
let's just being in a coma in Rome did not change who Kurt was. It didn't make him insane. It didn't cause any damage. We know that from the autopsy. We also know that people who spoke to him, like you just said, after Rome said he was fine. People who saw him the
Mhm.
next day in the hospital. I've spoken to someone who was there and said he was totally fine, very nice, very, just chatting about a bunch of stuff. And that person told me that he was telling them, and they were fans and they were just hanging out there in the hospital because his aunt worked there in the hospital. And he said that Kurt just started saying, I have to get a divorce. And he was just being really open and literally. So maybe the thing in Ian Halperin's book is true. that guy, he was telling the gas station guy, I got to get out, like, I mean, he
Yeah.
definitely seemed like the type of person, how highly sensitive people can be oversharers. Like,
All too well.
yes. I'm like,
Yes.
hello, new friend. Do you want to hear everything about my life?
My
Um,
whole life story. Here we go.
exactly. So, I just find that very interesting. But I think some people want to blame Rome for, him not being the same person. And it's simply not true. It just, the evidence
It's
doesn't back it up.
it's an easy cop out. Because the other person is Everett Edwards, who is, you may remember him as Officer Edwards from the
Hmm.
March 18th incident.
Right. Yeah.
Um, an interview was done with him by none other than Matthew Ricker. But he went on at length about how Kurt was fine, how he was a really, really nice guy, how he was insistent that he was not suicidal, that he had locked himself in a room after an argument with Courtney to get away with Courtney, that clearly all he wanted was to get out of that house, but that he was fine. He was embarrassed, but he was fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he
And he was also
definitely,
not on drugs. That's a
right.
specific quote from Edwards, that he
Interesting.
was not on drugs.
And to your point, sorry, I forgot to say, and people have probably heard me talk about this before, but again, the guy from Rome said that when Courtney came in the room, you could tell that he was just like anger was emanating from his eyes. He didn't want her there. He couldn't stand her. And he wanted to be away from her as soon as possible. And this is a stranger, someone, Kurt only talked to for
Yeah.
15 minutes, but it was very clear to him that Kurt wanted nothing to do with Courtney. And
That just
so
hurts my heart.
I know. Do you think the phone calls, she was allegedly calling him a lot at Exodus.
Hmm.
Do you think that the phone call, because you've been working on this timeline now, and so you're getting a better sense of things that you believe could have possibly happened and things that couldn't have. And I know we talked about this when we talked about the women who were there when Kurt died. Do you think that he did call Courtney from Callie, like when Callie said you need to call Courtney? Do you think he called her, or was he just like, I'm
I
done. I don't want to talk to her again at this
I
point?
don't think he did call her, no. Um,
And the
and
hotel, I
there's
forget, do they have any record of that?
I'll say, according to the statement from the Peninsula Hotel, that never took place, which is
Okay.
my biggest indicator, but also just um knowing what I know. And the course of things, and then, the events that had transpired. I was iffy on it always anyway, because it just seemed weird that he was, running away, didn't even stop to see her in LA when he was just a couple blocks from
Right.
her.
Right.
Um, Flew all the way home. But yeah, sure, let me just call her right up.
Yeah,
That totally defies logic.
absolutely.
I could see him telling them, yeah, sure, I'll call her. I'll go do that now, and stepping out of the room and then not actually doing it.
Hmm.
But no, I don't see that. And so the peninsula actually coming out and saying that no, that never actually took place. I tend to believe that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So let's talk again, just about Kurt's mindset. What do we know about? Obviously, we know Kurt got sick in Europe. We know he was struggling. We know, obviously, I mean, the mother of his child is abusing him to no end at this point. Their relationship is terrible. I think, do you have the quote from Buzz? If not, I can grab that quote from Buzz.
I can find it really quickly.
Okay, here, I've got it actually. And then,
Okay,
so I'll read this one. And then on March 1st, Nirvana performed in Munich, Germany, a former airport hangar known as the Terminal 1. Sorry, Germans, I probably must mess that up. On that day, Kurt and Courtney got into a huge shouting match on the phone that was witnessed by a number of people. During the call, Kurt told Courtney that he wanted a divorce. Buzz Osborne of the Melvins then approached Kurt and said, I think that what you should do is give her everything and run as if your very life depends on it. Honestly, speaking of like predictions, Buzz, seriously, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, sign everything over to her from this moment and just be gone. And if you need money, go out and do a fucking solo tour. Play acoustic guitar and you'll be fine. Osborne later told grunge journalist Mark Yarm, Kurt felt like he was trapped. He was embarrassed by her. He wanted to divorce her. He wanted to get out of it, but he was too much of a mess to get out of it. But Kurt really was trying to get out of his marriage to Courtney. Kurt called Rosemary Carroll from Munich and told her that he wanted to divorce Courtney and asked if she could secure him a good divorce attorney. I know we've talked about this before too. I still don't understand why Rosemary. Well, you said she did write up the papers, right? He just didn't get to sign them.
Yeah, it was done. He just didn't get to sign it.